I hope to see more of them because there are plenty of issues that can be discussed. And we're going to discuss one of them, which is the cooperation between academics and advanced collectors. We have a panel that is composed of people that together have an enormous amount of knowledge and experience of the numismatic world, but they come from different approaches and they have, I hope, different points of view, so they can make you a little bit wiser on what the possibilities are to cooperate between academics and advanced collectors. Let me introduce them to you in alphabetic order. We start with Joe Cribb, who is a retired keeper of coins and medals in the British Museum. He has written a lot, studied a lot, done a lot. He is a person with perhaps one of the highest name recognitions in the numismatic field. But I would bet that many in the audience know his book, The Coin Atlas, which is a wonderful low threshold introduction into the numismatics of all countries at all times. But his specialty is coins of the Kushan. And those who are regulars at World of Coins know that I'm busily putting together a thread on the coins of the Kushans in his honor. Then we have Alexander Malioukov, who is owner of the site CoinBrothers, which is a catalog site, a trading site, but it is also a site that offers much background, much analysis of what is actually on the coins. This sort of high quality background and the plethora of data is bringing collectors together as a community, and we're hoping that he can say something about his experience to add to ours. Amit Mehta is to World of Coins what Joe Cribb is to the numismatic world. He is somebody with very high name recognition. He is participating in expositions and events in India. He's an advanced collector, Mughal coins, and above all, he is the author of the book Heritage of Gujarat Coins. He is a specialist of the coins struck in his home city, but he prefers Ahmedabad. And last but not least, absolutely not least, except in the alphabet, is Paul Stevans, who is a well-known author on several subjects, actually, not just numismatics, but his books on British Indian numismatics are quite well known. So you can see we have a very high-powered panel, and now the subject of the panel is, I think, something that should be seen in the background of, I would call it numismatics in decline. It's not just the electronic games we're fighting against. If you have a very advanced age, such as I do, you will remember the British Museum having several rooms devoted to coins brought back to one gallery. You may remember the fantastic collection of the Smithsonian, which is now, well, not a shadow of what it once was. You may remember other museums that once had an enormous collection on show and no longer do. There's also the universities that offer less and less courses in numismatics. I've learned that PhDs can still be done, but the time that numismatics were important faculties or sub-faculties is probably to a large degree past. History, which is what numismatics feeds into, is losing importance in school curriculums. And to survive numismatics, and that is the academics and collectors must adapt. And this is a common interest of both groups. We can, because we have been offered new tools from the internet. There are such resources as Wikipedia for historic background, and Wikipedia goes more and more into numismatics. The academia site, which offers stuff of good and not so good quality, but lots of stuff anyway. And if you're searching for a certain subject, you're certain to find at least some documents on that particular subject. Archives are being scanned more and more. My great example is the Delver archive in Netherlands, which is a database of millions of newspapers since the beginning of newspapers. Keyword searches in Google are still important. Then we have tools like Google Translate, which has now come to the point that it is something that can be used in World of Coins, so that people whose first language is Spanish or French or something else can use World of Coins as if it was in their language. We have new solutions as well. Ebooks are the equivalent of paper books, and they take less place. Online catalogs like CoinBrothers are taking the place of enormous volumes that once graced the shelves of our libraries. The online databases like Zeno make life easier to find stuff just by homing in on the things that you do know, so that you can find what you're looking for. And then there's online meetings like these. With that in mind, let's have a look at what we can do. If I may start with Paul, do you have any comments at this point?
Well, I'll just say, you, Peter, you sent me a list of things that you were thinking about. And the first one is that you make a statement, numismatics is in decline. And I do understand the points you make about museums and universities. Certainly some of them seem to be doing a lot less on numismatics. But I don't really agree with the statement, because I see numismatics really increasing a lot, and particularly because I'm interested in Indian coins. I see it a lot in India. From the time I started, when there was one dealer in India who used to come here occasionally. Now there are lots, and there seem to be thousands of collectors. So I think although there might be some decrease in museums and universities, as you pointed out, I think there's a huge increase in collectors. And some of those collectors will come to take more active interest in the research of the subject, just as I did. I mean, I see myself as a collector because I'm a scientist by training. I'm interested in research. So I started doing more detailed, more academic research as I got older and had more free time. And I suspect that a lot of the new collectors that are appearing will start doing that. One other thing that you really have pointed out already, so I won't go into it in detail, is the use of electronic media to communicate about coins. For instance, until the last, well, really quite recent number of years, we haven't been able to communicate with people across the world like we can in this meeting right at this very moment. And so that actually, I think, is an indication that numismatics doesn't have to be in decline if we choose not to allow it to be. One site that you didn't mention was Coin Archives. And there is an example of dealers providing vast quantities of information, which is available to anybody, so long as they're willing to subscribe to the site. As far as I know, there are two ways you can subscribe. There's a full subscription, which the dealers themselves will be interested in because you get all the prices that coins are sold for, which presumably is why they're also willing to engage in it. But there's a much cheaper way of subscribing, which I think is called academic subscription, which is what I do, where you get all the coins that are being sold, all the photographs, but you just don't get the prices they were sold for. So, you know, there's a good example of how dealers are making vast quantities of information available easily to anybody in the numismatic world now.
That's noted and a very good tip. Thank you very much. How about Joe? What is your experience with the issue of cooperating with collectors?
Well, I'm not a collector myself, but I've always, throughout my career, I worked for 40 years at the British Museum, and I've been doing numismatic research since I left more than 10 years ago. Collectors have always played a key role. You know, the British Museum collection is an assemblage of other collectors' collections. So in my research, I make extensive use of the collections of R.B. Whitehead, Sir Alexander Cunningham, James Prinsep, and Charles Masson. They're all collectors who worked in India and built up huge collections, and they're now based in the British Museum, and there are some similar collections in the Ashmolean Museum and in the Fitzwilliam Museum. And without those collections, academic numismatics would not be possible. And you know, before I started work at the British Museum, I was familiar with coin collecting. I knew Michael Michener, and my brother was a coin collector. And so I'd seen coin collecting in practice. Both Michael Michener and my brother were very interested in the research side of the coins they were collecting. And, you know, so I could see that the two, you know, both academic work and collecting joined together as a single whole. And every day I'm in touch with collectors around the world through Facebook, through email, and drawing data from them, but also at the same time giving them advice on whether coins are genuine or not, how to identify coins. And so, you know, I think collectors and academics are part of the same thing. There are now problems with collecting, which I think every collector should be aware of, which is the UNESCO Convention on illegally traded heritage. So I think it's important that collectors act responsibly in that regard, but also that they act responsibly in terms of the academic world. You know, if you come across a hoard of coins, it's really important to make that knowledge available before the hoard is split up into lots of collections. You know, there was a huge hoard of Kushan coins came onto the market via Pakistan, and then in India, went through Indian auction houses. Then one started to see it in American auction houses. But we don't know for sure which coins were in that hoard. You know, one can have a guess, but it would have been of immense importance to the study of the Kushan Empire and its coinage if we'd seen that hoard before it got split up and had a record of it. You know, so it's, you know, I think it's a two-way track. You know, we as academics, we're doing this academic research because we want to create an understanding of coinage history, and collectors use that every day. But we need more data in order to continue developing that history. And you know, so let's work together. That's what I say.
It's great, and it's wonderful to see that you have an open mind, especially since, as I said, you have high name recognition, and I hope that others will follow your example. On your last point, personally, I'm a great admirer of the portable antiquity scheme, which rewards people who have found stuff in the ground. But there are many other countries, and India is a good example, where you can actually be punished for finding something in the ground where it is not worth your while to go to the authorities. Isn't this also a bit of a problem of the law rather than just a problem of collectors?
Yeah, I think the British government, largely through advice from numismatists in the British Museum. The Portable Antiquities scheme was set up by Roger Bland, who was part of my department. And he also brought about a change in the treasure law as well. And those two efforts mean that people finding coins in Britain are not punished if they find a hoard, and it's either then acquired by a museum and the market price is given to the finder, or the coins are returned to the finder to then dispose of as they see fit. But what is important is that the hoard is recorded, and if it's of significance, then it ends up in a museum. It's quite an expensive process because museums have to find the money to buy them. The Portable Antiquities scheme is designed so that metal detectorists and casual finders of coins have somewhere where they can report what they've found. And we now have a very clear picture of the loss of coins across the nation. And one of my former colleagues, Robert Brace, has just done a piece of work on Indian coins found in Britain, and thinks that he can demonstrate that some of the Indian coins found in Britain were probably ancient losses, probably bought by Roman soldiers from Egypt, because there was a trade between India and Egypt. So coins of Nahapana and other Western satrap coins have been found in the UK. And so, you know, it's you know, that tool, the Portable Antiquities scheme, has enabled him to do that piece of research.
That's fascinating stuff. And since we're talking about India, let's see what Amit can say about his experience while writing his book.
Before I go to that, I'd like to reply to Joe that the fact is that Indian laws are absolutely against people finding antiquities, especially coins. And it's almost impossible to report a hoard without getting into jail.
It's a very difficult situation.
A few friends of mine, one of my co-authors also has extensively traveled into central India to pick up copper coins. But he has personally documented what he has found, but unfortunately he's not prepared to publish it for fear of getting punished by the law.
Yeah, well, I have a friend in Calcutta who at the University of Calcutta who works on hoards of Bengal Sultanate coins, and she's been able to document hoards in treasury, you know, ones that have been passed through the treasure trove system, and made some really important discoveries about the nature of the circulation and production of Bengal Sultanate coin. But if a similar situation was able to apply, that all hoards either were recorded or deposited and were accessible, then Indian numismatics would greatly benefit.
Yes, I agree. Now coming to my experiences, well, I started out as a collector, so my main thing was collecting coins till I started focusing, and gradually my interest in history brought me into looking at possibilities of documenting coins which were not recorded earlier. And three of us friends got together to write this book. These were coins of a very small area, which is a tribal area even today. And almost there is no record. Even in the earlier records from these rulers, there were only two coins of two rulers of a particular state of Lunawada being recorded. And we were successful in bringing out at least three other rulers before them. Getting the material or getting the coins in India is not a very difficult job, because the number of coins found and the number of coins coming into the market is substantially large. The issue is it's difficult to pinpoint which coins have come from. And that is why sometimes you don't know a particular coin which is not documented, whether it actually belongs to that area and era, unless there are the name of the rulers or the mint names on the coins, which is quite often on copper coins not found. Another issue that we faced was getting information from other collectors who've been collecting for years. There are a number of good collectors, big collectors, who preferred not to show their coins, not to put them out in the open, possibly because of the Indian laws. Because even today there is always a hanging sword, because you cannot have the invoices for all the coins that you have in your collection. And if you're not able to prove the provenance or your ownership of these coins, you can be harassed a lot. And that is where we are losing out a lot on research.
I think we have found a subject on our agenda of cooperation, but let us hear from Alexander. He can give us the view from the Russian, he can give us a view both from Russia, but also his own experience with his site. Alexander, you have the floor.
Yep, sure. Well, first of all, I could tell that I moved from Russia a long time ago, but I still visit my parents, and I could say what's going on in Russia with all those like metal detector and stuff like that. It's very tricky. Tons of coins that people found recently, but they're not actually allowed to sell them. They're not allowed to tell them abroad or send them abroad. It's forbidden. You could end up in jail if you do it. So basically, if you would like to medieval Russian coin, you'll find offer something like this. You'll pay for unlimited research, and then they'll give you this coin for unlimited research. And well, it's well, they're trying to trick local laws. But back to the main point, Peter, I disagree with you a bit that nowadays Wikipedia is source of truth for coin collectors. When I was slowly turning from basically a person who's collecting coin and studying something about coins to actually creating a website, I noticed that information is very inaccurate, very kind of like disposed on different topics. And basically, sometimes it's almost impossible to find, let's say, truthful information, what's going on with particular coin. And I know that I'm really keen on little details. I start digging it and found out that basically it's much easier to find forum like yours, where people, where people actually could help me than running around and basically looking for all this stuff. So then it was start point for me. I decided to create some kind of like entity where people, collectors, coin collectors, could collaborate and create some kind of like coin catalog, which wouldn't be like academia coin catalog, where like researchers will do it. But actually it's like all ordinary collectors could, you know, like impact to this catalog. Of course, it was like, how would I say, very utopia in the very beginning. But since I'm IT guy, for me, it's not so complicated. I'm doing like much more complicated services in my job. So I've created something which is really handy from interfaces, and then I start using my knowledge in crowdsourcing and was trying to push people there because I know how to work with small and big group of people. And surprisingly, I found that, well, let's say, there aren't so many people who would like to make catalogs. It looks like everybody is keen on it, but in reality, people don't want to invest time. All catalogs that you'll find on web, quite often, they're not willing to share information. They're not very cooperative. They don't want to, like, for instance, even exchange photos. So when I'm asking online shop, may I use your photos? Yes, please use it. When I'm asking some forum which is about ancient coins, may I use your photos? No, I thought I'll put link to your website. So it would be like mutual interest. No, we don't want. So it's like a bit like everybody's trying to keep their castle. But at the same time, in many areas of coin collecting, you wouldn't find information in catalogs. Good example, I love Golden Horde coins. There are like about 2.5 catalogs about Golden Hordes, and all of them are so inaccurate that nobody actually trusts them. And guess what is like place where people are looking for information about Golden Horde coins? Zena.com, this website where people are collecting coins from medieval and lots of Indian coins as well. So it's online catalog, not very well designed, with tons of information and tons of photos. So it's a sign that people actually, well, need something where they could find information fast enough. But as you know, Peter, we were trying to put some ancient coins to my catalog. And then it's really tricky because ancient coins are totally different from nowadays coins. They different shapes, they have like different type of information, but again, it's very doable to find way how to present them. And then to allow academia guys to write down behind story, which would be like more or less like truthful. But a gap between academia guys and, well, let's say people who are making online online catalogs, huge. There's no actually like a one-to-one communication. And I could tell you another stuff that online catalogs are close to be dead because more and more people are using mobile. So it means that we need to jump from all these online catalogs, like we jump from paper to online catalogs, and make mobile apps where people could make, like photo of their coin, immediately recognize what this coin about, and then read about this coin, read additional information and how they could proceed. Because usually coin collector nowadays could buy any coin. So, but if you'll explain him that what area of interest that he's buying and what key coins that he should keep in his or her collection, then it would be very handy. And in my case, you notice that I have very good quality of content on my website. It's not huge. So they're not like 50,000 coins. It's maybe like around 10,000 coins. But what is great about it, that I'm like every detail on coin is well described. And immediately guys from Mint of Finland contacted me and asked, could we use your content in our mobile app? I was absolutely happy to provide them all content because for me, it was a chance to get from them information that I might miss, like mintages, some little details, like who was like mint director at this particular year, etc., etc. So it was very cool cooperation with guys who are actually making coins. So I think like, well, business and online shops, very well cooperated, but academia guys, not much.
Thank you very much. In fact, I think we found a second point on our future agenda, which is all about networking. Both academics and collectors need a network in order to contact each other directly and to see if they can do something about it. We'll have to think more about coin recognition as well. I think that something can be done there, and it could be quite a collaborative thing. With that, I would like to invite the audience.
Peter, you're mute. Peter, you're mute.
Peter, you muted yourself. Okay, there we go. You're back.
Sorry. I was trying to think of the public and the chat function, and surprise, surprise, the number of questions in the chat box is 0. That is a lot less than I thought there would be, but I'll give you a little bit of time. I would like to use that time now to ask panel members to think about the problems and the solutions. Let's take them together because they belong together. That are in the way of a further cooperation between academics and collectors. Let's see, who shall I pick on?
Peter,
Yes,
can I
Joe,
just come in for a sec?
please do, Amit.
Regarding cooperation between academics and coin collectors, in the next talk that Abhishek and I are jointly going to come up with, I would be posing a couple of questions on why certain things happened at a particular point of time. As a coin collector, I've been able to find the coins to substantiate those changes, but why those changes took place or why those things happened, it's a subject for the academics to be able to come up with. And it's not one, there are a number of such points that I have been able to find in different fields. So this would be just one example.
Right.
Yeah.
Joe, I think you're willing to comment on that.
Yes, I mean, I think if collectors publish their coins, then that makes them available to academics. You know, you might ask some academics that you know. I mean, you know, in your series, I think Shailendra Bhandari is probably one of the leading people who's working in the academic world. But if you put things into print, then academics that you don't know about will also see them, and then perhaps be able to answer some of the questions that you're asking. I wanted to comment something on Alexander's presentation, that there are also a lot of museum websites now that have large quantities of coins. If you look at the British Museum site,
good example about museums. Sorry, I interrupt you. There is a Victorian Museum from, I think, Australia. They have wonderful online collection of coins. And it's forbidden to use photos from there. And they have enormously, how to say, the most idiotic search that I've ever seen. So basically, you can't find any particular coin. You need to scroll down or use Google search to find what you need.
Well, have a look at the British Museum site. You can download images from that, and the search engine is very effective. You know, if you're, you know, you just put a string of words in that match your search into the search box, and very quickly you'll find. I mean, the only limitation is that this is an expensive process, and we've, you know, the museum's been at it for about 20-25 years putting stuff on, and it's still got a long way to go. But every time a coin is put up, it means somebody's got to spend time creating the record. We've got to pay a photographer to create the photographs. So it's not yet complete. The Ashmolean Museum's digital database is also accessible online, and that is also very useful. And the American Numismatics Society, you know, all these sites are created within a museum context, but there's also similar work going on in the academic world. In Oxford University, there are people working on Greek coin websites. So if you are looking for coins of Alexander the Great, for example, all the coins of Alexander the Great in several collections are now on a website, and you know, so there is a lot available.
I'd like to pick up on that point, Joe, and ask Paul, who is the researcher, the self-described researcher, I should say. I think he's a lot more than that. And ask him if he sees any solutions in networking, or if World of Coins, with members all over the globe, could play a role in convincing, for instance, the Australian Museum to open up to outside people.
Yes, I mean, that's quite difficult. You know, although the British Museum has put coins online line now. In the early days when I used to go there, you couldn't photograph the coins. I don't know if you can now. I gave up with that. But you could have photographs of the coins if you paid a fortune for them. So of course, who would do that? I couldn't afford to.
But it's a security question as much as a security, and also making sure that there still are photographers employed in the museum, because they have to be paid, so the money's got to come from somewhere.
Well, that's yes. So if I go to Oxford, for instance, I can photograph whatever I want.
But that's because of who you are. If you were a member of the public, you probably wouldn't be given that access.
Oh, right. But how will you persuade a museum to actually make the things out? I mean, it amazes me that any museum would hide any of their coins or any other artifacts as far as that goes, because their only reason for existence is to store the artifacts and make them available to the public in general. Yeah. So, it's ridiculous that the public can't access them.
Well, I'd like to
but that doesn't mean
on
that,
a particular point, because we have only 5 minutes left, and we have some questions from the public now. There's one that intrigues me. It says that why doesn't the British Museum have a full-time photographer? Is that so, Joe? Is there no full-time photographer?
There are photographers employed in the British Museum, and they're employed full-time, but there's a lot of work for them to do.
I'm sure there is. Another question I got from the public is, what can the numismatic community do to promote better laws regarding coin founds, treasure troves? Does anybody have an opinion on that? Amit, you said that Indian laws were horrid. What can we do about it?
They're really terrible, and in fact, a lot of heritage was lost, of course, a long time back when the Gold Control Act was brought in, sometimes in the 60s and 70s, when it was made compulsory. A person in his own capacity could not hold even anything more than 14 karat gold. So all gold coins, a lot of silver was melted away.
Yeah.
Now, what can we do about that? Can we lobby? Is the Indian government susceptible to lobbying?
Well, after a lot of persuasion, numismatics has been recognized as a commodity in the latest taxation regime. The new GST regime now recognizes numismatics as a separate commodity with its own tax rates. So maybe there is a possibility with some severe or hard lobbying, things could improve.
Same question for Alexander. Is there anything that we can do? Is there any networking? Can we do any lobbying? Is the government susceptible to lobbying?
I would say that problem not coins. Problem is that like all artifacts that people are find in the ground, and sometimes they're taken like it's aggressively from like places which government thinks that they belong to church or they belong to some, like archaeological sites. So I would say that academia guys, we do have them as well, are doing their best to make it more kind of publicly allowed, but also they don't want that people will take treasure coins from country and sell them abroad, because prices in Russia are much smaller compared to any kind of, basically any medieval Russian coin would cost 10 times less than, relatively rare UK coin or US coin. So it could take like a couple of years, and then all of them will be like somewhere in Europe. Like it happened with, you remember there was like times during Soviet Union when people were stealing icons from churches and selling them like in Europe. So government is trying to protect, but of course, when government is trying to protect something, it turns to be idiotic because they overprotecting. And somebody could go to jail buying just silver coin from 1920, not declaring it and taking it with him or herself to plane. So I would suggest not to touch Russian government, not push them with any ideas, because it would turn worse.
That sounds very encouraging. Joe, you have a last word, I believe.
Well, the change that took place in the UK was done by one of the British Museum staff joining the Ministry of Culture, secondment, and working there to change the law and working with politicians. You know, so it can be done, but I think it requires a government that has enough money to do it, and also one that is open to democracy.
Right. In fact, the Portable Antiquities Scheme could be an example to hold up as a system that does work, and that should be of interest to archaeologists. From there on, you can go to civil servants, and from there on, you can actually achieve something, but that will differ from country to country. So in some countries, you can go a long way. In some countries, it just wouldn't work for one reason or another. I would like to thank this panel very much for a great discussion, one that we can take further on World of Coins, and I'm sure that we will do this. We have all enjoyed this discussion very much, but every good thing must come to an end, bad things fortunately also. And we have to move on with the agenda.
Okay, thank you, Peter.
Yeah, thanks a lot.